Your indifference costs these men and women their most valuable commodity, time.
This isn't about trying to get paid. I want to live. We are exposed to carcinogens that cause my cancer.
We shouldn't have to have a law that tells the cities that they have to do the right thing.
It sounds like there may be something, whether it's the bureaucracy or a loophole or something that needs to be fixed, but these men and women should have access to the services that they need.
Fighting fires and cancer, a story of denial.
Chapter 1. Firefighters and their stories of diagnosis and denial.
I'm KTAR reporter Allie Vettner. This comprehensive investigation started when we were approached by Valley firefighters who say they have cancer they got from the job. In the first part of this series, we tell their stories, from their diagnosis to their subsequent denial of worker compensation coverage. Just 2 years ago, the presumptive cancer legislation was amended to include nearly 20 cancers that if a firefighter is said to have this, their healthcare coverage should be all-inclusive. This is Goodyear firefighter Austin Peck. He just turned 35 years old and has since been medically retired because they say he's no longer fit for duty.
The treatment's hard, but I always make the joke that fighting not only my regular insurance, but health or industrial insurance is way harder than fighting the cancer. And it's terrible to say, but that's the truth.
Fellow Goodyear firefighter Gilbert Aguirre was diagnosed in the same year, 2015, as his friend Austin Peck. Not only did they work at the same fire station together for nearly 5 years, but they also went through a cancer battle together.
At that time, I got my 3 young boys, and so I always get emotional when I talk to this because I always remember that same day, but the day when I had to sit them down and tell them, like, hey, this is what I got, when I have leukemia.
Gilbert set up an event for when he cleared his cancer, and he donated everything to me. Everything was about me when we're there partying for Gilbert. And he just beat cancer, and that's how deep the love is. I worked with Gilbert on the ladder truck for years and years, and it was supposed to be a huge party for him, and my whole every family and friends showed up, and it was just a love event. It took away my cancer for the night, for a couple days.
Captain Kevin Thompson has been on the Glendale Fire Department for 26 years. He's been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is said to be a cancer that's lifelong.
I remember when I found out that it was one of the presumptuous cancers, the relief that came over me, and I thought, oh my gosh, at least I know that I'll be able to get help with the lifelong treatment that I'm going to require, and that I won't be a burden on my family. And I remember thinking what a relief it was.
Peter Benzing has been on the job for nearly 11 years as a Casa Grande firefighter. He too has a cancer that is listed on the presumptive cancer law.
Once I was certain that it hadn't spread and we had kind of a surgical date set, I filed the workman's comp paperwork, and then started making phone calls and educating myself to the process. And I called a couple friends, and they put me in touch with Brian Moore, and then some other firefighters that were going through it themselves, like Gilbert or Kevin, and kind of had a better idea of what I was in store for. So, and they warned me that I most likely would be denied.
Across the state, denials for cancer presumptive claims is a pretty substantial number. We've had cases that have been approved across the state, but the denials far outweigh the approvals, and we thought things would be a little bit different when the law was passed in 2017.
Although their claims may differ depending on the city they work for, they all follow a very similar process. Once they submit their worker compensation claim, they're then seen by an independent medical examiner that's hired by their city's insurance company, or in some cases, the cities themselves.
I had to print out all the last 15 years of my career, I had to print out all the calls, all the fires I've been onto. So now I'm sitting in front of a computer going through, trying to set up every call, print everything out, trying not to start puking, and so just spending all my time instead of getting better or working on just my health, now trying to prove a case.
These firefighters shared with me what their independent medical exam was like. Some of them didn't even meet this doctor and just were told that he reviewed their medical files. Others told me they weren't even physically touched by him.
The IME that Workman's Comp or Copper Point hired, he denied and said, well, we realize that they're exposed to all the different carcinogens and they can possibly cause the cancer, but you have to tell us which one did it. And it's like, that's almost impossible.
Each firefighter I interviewed confirmed that their independent medical exam included Scottsdale-based oncologist Dr. Jason Selgonic. Many firefighters believe this is where their denial originates, making their cancer diagnosis seem unrelated to the job. And this is where their city sides with whatever the independent medical examiner's findings are. In court documents obtained by KTAR News, Dr. Jason Selgonic has estimated that he's examined anywhere from 20 to 30 firefighters. He's yet to find one case where he can link their cancer to the job.
You know, I live in the firefighter medical world. It's what I do every day. And I know that the correlation exists because I look for it. And what I say to the IMEs is do your homework and do the right thing because it's there.
Chapter 2. Navigating the denial.
Vice President of Member Benefits with United Phoenix Firefighters, Brian Moore, has helped firefighters across the state of Arizona for nearly 15 years navigate the denial process.
I'm usually the second phone call somebody makes after they're diagnosed with cancer. So what I do is I set up an appointment. I ask them to bring in their spouse or significant other and walk through about a 2-hour meeting of all the different steps and the process as far as benefits and all the additional assistance they may need during their time of their care and treatment.
President of the United Goodyear Firefighters, Stephen Gilman, shared with us his frustration in hearing his firefighters being denied and the way they were treated. He talked to us about how their union and all their members stepped up in a big way to help them during their cancer battle and their denial.
To see 2 of our brothers diagnosed with cancer is one thing. I mean, it's terrible to watch somebody struggle for their life and have to see what they go through. But then to add the insult to injury, and they're now battling their employer or a private insurance company for workman's comp benefits I don't think there's a word that can describe how frustrating or angry you can get at the process.
A lot of these firefighters talk about their fire family, but it's sort of special for Austin Peck. It's not only fire family, but it's actually family. His uncle is Scottsdale Fire Chief Tom Shannon, and he talks about how he was an integral part in getting him into the fire service.
I'll carry around pictures of my nephew for the rest of my life. Every community's got their Austin, right? To ask that kid, on which call did you get your cancer, to me that is truly a moral issue.
Chapter 3. The medical opinion.
A major factor in how these firefighters are denied is they're asked to prove which fire and which carcinogen gave them cancer. We spoke to medical professionals who specialize in this area. This is what they said. Is there any way to physically prove that one fire has given a firefighter cancer?
No, and that's one of my big arguments is it's multiple fires, it's multiple exposures. The toxicity is cumulative. Another thing that's really interesting is I'll have one fire truck that will call me and 3 people on that fire truck have gotten cancer. For example, in Mesa, there's one truck where one guy got a sarcoma, one person got a breast cancer, and one person got a colon cancer. Well, I know that's not normal, so they were exposed to something so bad.
Dr. Vershali Shukla with Vincier Cancer Center specializes in this area and has now become an advocate for firefighters. Not only does she work to prevent cancer in the fire service by offering free cancer screenings for firefighters, but she also serves as an expert witness when firefighters go to court to appeal their denials.
A lot of them right now are paying out of pocket for their tests, but they're willing to do it because they want to be alive. And then some of them they're already asking me to be their expert witness when they get cancer, and I'm like, please don't think like that, but they're scared.
Dr. Shukla's Vincere Cancer Center now screens first responders for free on Fridays. When we were there, we saw plenty of firefighters in her waiting room.
Trying to be proactive, I think that's something that's newer, is getting ahead of this stuff. You hear a lot of success stories with people catching it early and being able to do something about it. I think the part that hits home is co-workers, friends, family members that have cancer and have got it and have died or have life-changing effects from it.
Kepper Jack with Heart Fit for Duty has worked in the firefighter medical field for nearly 15 years. She took her experience alongside scientific-backed evidence to the legislature to help them pass the presumptive cancer law. Do you believe that it's political and it's about money?
I believe it's wholeheartedly about money. And had I not sat across the table from the people I've sat across the table for, maybe I would think that it wasn't, and that there was, maybe it was just not enough evidence or proof, but I've seen all the evidence. I've read it and read it and read it, and then I listen to what the leagues of cities and towns are saying and what politically is out there, and it's that we can't afford it. And my firefighters can't afford it.
I take chemo medication every single day. My chemo medication is $14,232 a month.
With the treatment I had to go to in California, I had to start chemotherapy and a proton beam radiation. There was only 6 of them in the United States at the time, so I moved to California, and not only is rent higher in California, all my insurance was denying every treatment. So out of pocket, the day I moved to California, I was almost $100,000 out of pocket. Firemen don't have $100,000 in their pocket.
In the first 21 days of treatment, I paid just over $4,000. My portion of chemotherapy until I met my out-of-pocket deductibles was costing me $1,200 a week.
Chapter 4, the response from cities.
On behalf of the Glendale City Council, I want to assure our residents that Glendale cares deeply for our first responders.
At almost every step of the process, I felt like it couldn't have gotten any more difficult at times. It began to take a feel like they were trying to make it as difficult as possible in hopes that maybe I would just go away.
As we started to dive in and reach out to cities to find out how and why firefighters were being denied workers' compensation, we sat down and spoke with Phoenix City Councilwoman Laura Pastor. She explained to us how Phoenix started to change their culture and how it happened.
We needed to start preventative measures. And preventative measures in the sense of what does it cost in the front end to do preventative measures for our firefighters versus in the back end. Well, Brian Beck's case came and showed up in front of me, and I said, no, we have a law. It should be it shouldn't be denied.
When I reached out to the cities of Glendale, Goodyear, and Casa Grande, I asked them what their process was when it comes to handling worker compensation claims. It was unclear. They rerouted me to their insurance companies who told me they couldn't talk to me about it. That's when I reached out to the Arizona Industrial Commission, and they told me point blank, any carrier or self-insured city like Phoenix or Glendale can approve a claim at any time, no questions asked, or no independent medical examiner needed.
It's less expensive. in the front end, and it's less expensive for them to be getting the screenings that they need to get than it is in the end when someone comes up and says, I have stage 4 and here's my mortality and here's what it's going to cost to keep me alive.
If I had a message as the leader of the state to leaders of cities, it's let's take care of those who take care of us.
Chapter 5, Finding a Solution.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich has called himself a first responder and public safety supporter from the beginning. He backed that up by sending a letter to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns saying you need to follow this law, and if you don't, you'll be held accountable.
It's unfortunate that we've gotten to the point where the cities aren't doing the right thing. As I've said, it's not only the morally right thing to do, it's the legally right thing to do. And so we want to continue, at this time, I'm going to do everything I can to continue to at least put some public pressure on them and shame them into doing the right thing.
He doubled down on that by recently sending a letter to the Arizona Industrial Commission asking for the number of firefighter benefit cases and their outcomes, trying to figure out and get to the bottom of how and why these firefighters are being denied.
I think that's important, that if you see a pattern or if you see that there's one individual, that's essentially denying all these claims, I think that's very, very problematic. And, we need to start looking at, is this someone that's just being hired by the cities because they know the insurance companies, or hired by the insurance companies because they know that he's going to or she's going to give them or say whatever they want them to say.
I spoke with State Senator Paul Boyer, who has advocated and championed for this law to get passed, and he's still continuing to fight for firefighters when he hears about their denials.
So the mayor of Glendale and the city manager, Kevin Phelps, we've had a pre-standing meeting for about 2 weeks. Now they're trying to shift the meeting on me. They're trying to say that, we don't want to meet in your office. We're only going to meet at the city of Glendale. So I'm going to be here whether or not they show up.
The city of Glendale refuses to stay silent and allow misguided state senator and his political fire union friends to make disparaging comments about the city.
I too had an interview scheduled with the city of Glendale, and they canceled it the day before, and I tried to reschedule, and they never gave me the time of day.
I just see the city as playing games. Let me give an example. So I talked to their lobbyist, and he said, oh no, Senator Boyer, we can't do a special meeting because they're on vacation in the month of August. Come to find out 3 days later, they had a special meeting to vote for themselves, to give themselves a pay raise. So they could vote to have a special meeting to give themselves extra money in their bank accounts, but they can't meet about one of their own employees, a firefighter who's risked his life for 27 years for the city.
You may know the story and the name of late Phoenix firefighter Brian Beck. I spoke with his sister, Melissa Del Pra, who explained to me what their family went through, not only with his diagnosis and his denial, but their fight in getting his claim approved.
It was in February of this year that it was discovered that it was in his brain in 60 different places. So he would need to do brain radiation. And I think that was the reality of how serious that this was. So I think that at that point, the importance of this coverage was tremendous for us and for him. And it was, I could see a shift in him that he was more concerned for his family than he was for himself.
Melissa told me what their family went through when they went and fought to get Brian's claim approved. And once they won that, it essentially led to a culture change in Phoenix, leading to being proactive instead of reactive.
We created the Facebook page and we called on our family and friends to rally behind us and get the help of our state senators and our people in our community, but to write to the leaders of our state.
It was a whole council decision to determine regarding these 15 cases. They were on the presumptive list, and that's when we said they're on the presumptive list. We're gonna approve them.
Looking at this as a statewide issue, we wanted to speak to the governor and get his take on this.
Hello, Allie.
Hello, Governor.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for
How's
meeting
everything?
with me. Great.
My pleasure.
With a law already being in place, We asked the governor how could this be happening and what needs to change going forward to make sure it doesn't continue.
When I hear about these situations, it angers me, it disappoints me. We've signed 3 bills in the last several years to address just these types of situations. I've seen what can happen when some of these companies get involved and work to stop or deny or unnecessarily protect their own profitability. This is a law that was passed for a reason, and it was so that these firefighters would have access to these services, and these insurance companies should be responsive, or we should find new companies or new ways to do it.
Cancer is the leading cause of death for firefighters. Since 2002, almost 2 out of every 3 firefighters who died in the line of duty died of cancer, according to the International Association of Firefighters.
Firefighters' jobs are difficult and is undeniably dangerous. But that pales in comparison to the battle with cancer and to the battle in getting their claim approved. They believe at the end of the day, it all comes down to the bottom dollar.
This fight is going to reach a point, unfortunately, that it will be irrefutable. In a lot of ways, those of us that are going through this battle right now are the tip of the spear. But time, unfortunately, I know in my heart, is going to prove the science that we are exposed to things during the course of our careers that we are now paying for.
Here's our top story.
KTAR News, 92.3 FM, Arizona's news station.